Welcome back to our journey into the unexplained. Tonight we visit a small American town that, for 13 terrifying months, became the epicenter of a paranormal storm. This isn't just a story about a monster. It's about a prophecy, a disaster, and a winged creature that may have been a harbinger of both. This is the story of the Mothman Prophecies, the monster that foretold a disaster. The story of the Mothman begins, as many strange tales do, on a dark, lonely road with a group of young people. It was the night of November 15th, 1966, in the small, quiet town of Point Pleasant, West Virginia. Two young couples, Roger and Linda Scarberry and Steve and Mary Millette, were driving aimlessly looking for friends. Their search led them to the outskirts of town, near a place the locals knew as the TNT area. This was a sprawling, derelict former World War II munitions plant, a place of decaying concrete domes and dark, overgrown fields, a perfect setting for a nightmare. As their car passed one of the old, abandoned power plants, their headlights caught something that would haunt them forever. Standing in the shadows was a figure unlike anything they had ever seen. It was tall, between 6 and 7 feet, and shaped like a man, but it had no discernible head, and most terrifyingly, 2 huge red hypnotic eyes that glowed in the darkness. As the 4 teenagers stared in stunned silence, the creature unfolded a pair of massive bat-like wings and rose into the air with a strange, shuffling grace. Panic erupted. Roger Scarberry slammed his foot on the accelerator, and the car sped away, tires screeching on the gravel. But when they looked back, the creature was following them. It swooped and soared through the air, its 10-foot wingspan easily keeping pace with their car as it reached speeds of over 100 miles per hour. It didn't seem to flap its wings. It simply glided, its piercing red eyes fixed on them. They drove in terror back to town, the creature finally peeling off as they reached the city lights. Shaking and hysterical, they drove straight to the Mason County Sheriff's Office. Sheriff George Johnson listened to their story. He knew these kids. They weren't pranksters. Looking at their pale, terrified faces, he knew they had seen something. When the local newspaper reported the incident, an editor, trying to find a name for the bizarre creature, dubbed it Mothman, after a villain from the popular Batman TV series. The name stuck. And with the publication of the story, the floodgates opened. The encounter on November 15th was not an isolated incident, it was merely the beginning. Over the next 13 months, Point Pleasant and the surrounding Ohio Valley were gripped by a wave of over 100 sightings of the same terrifying creature. The descriptions were remarkably consistent: a tall, winged, humanoid figure with glowing red eyes. A group of firefighters saw it at the time. A contractor named Newell Partridge claimed it mesmerized him with its red eyes, before his dog chased it off, a dog that was never seen again. Witnesses often reported strange phenomena accompanying the sightings: a metallic screeching sound, interference with their car radios and televisions, and a feeling of pure primal fear. The TNT area became the creature's unofficial lair. This vast 8,000-acre complex of abandoned bunkers and toxic waste dumps was a place of shadows and secrets, a fitting backdrop for a monster. But the Mothman sightings did not happen in a vacuum. They were part of a much larger and stranger phenomenon that descended upon the region, a period that investigators would later call a paranormal flap. During the same 13 months, the Ohio Valley experienced one of the most intense concentrations of UFO sightings in American history. People reported strange lights in the sky, silent hovering craft, and close encounters. The story of the Mothman soon attracted investigators from across the country, most notably a brilliant and eccentric man named John Keel. Keel was not a typical monster hunter. He was a serious journalist who initially came to Point Pleasant to debunk the stories. However, what he found there changed his perspective forever. Keel discovered that the strangeness went even deeper. Witnesses to both the Mothman and the UFOs began to report visits from sinister, intimidating figures, the legendary Men in Black. These were not government agents. They were strange, robotic-acting men with dark complexions and odd facial features, dressed in immaculate but old-fashioned black suits and driving pristine, vintage black Cadillacs. They would visit witnesses, often knowing intimate details about their lives, and either subtly or overtly threaten them into silence. They would ask bizarre, nonsensical questions and often seemed confused by everyday objects. Their presence added a terrifying layer of conspiracy to the events, suggesting that some unknown intelligence was actively trying to suppress the story. As Keel's investigation deepened, he began to see a pattern. He no longer believed the Mothman was a physical creature, a new species of bird or a mutated animal from the toxic TNT area. The creature's ability to appear and disappear, its seeming defiance of the laws of physics, and its connection to the UFOs and MIBs led him to a radical conclusion. He theorized that the Mothman was a supernatural or trans-dimensional being, an entity from another reality that was temporarily intersecting with our own. He believed these entities were drawn to window areas on Earth, places where the veil between worlds was thin, and he came to believe that their appearance was often a prelude to a human disaster. This sense of impending doom was not limited to Keel. Many residents of Point Pleasant, even those who hadn't seen the creature, began to experience a shared sense of anxiety and dread.
People reported prophetic nightmares. One woman, Connie Carpenter, had a recurring dream of seeing people drowning in the Ohio River, surrounded by floating Christmas presents. The feeling was palpable. Something terrible was about to happen. The Mothman, with its terrifying red eyes, was no longer just a monster. It was an omen. The prophecy was fulfilled on December 15, 1967. It was late afternoon, during the height of rush hour traffic. The Silver Bridge, an almost 40-year-old I-bar suspension bridge connecting Point Pleasant, West Virginia, to Gallipolis, Ohio, was packed with cars filled with people heading home from work or doing last-minute Christmas shopping. The temperature was near freezing. At approximately 5 p.m., a single critical I-bar in one of the suspension chains, weakened by decades of corrosion and a tiny, undetectable flaw, snapped. The failure was catastrophic and instantaneous. The immense tension was transferred to the adjacent bars, which were not designed to carry the load. In a terrifying chain reaction, the entire bridge buckled and twisted. With a sound described as a deafening roar, the Silver Bridge collapsed into the icy waters of the Ohio River in less than a minute. 31 vehicles plunged into the freezing depths. The scene was one of unimaginable horror. Of the people on the bridge at the time of the collapse, 46 died, either from the fall or by drowning in the frigid water. The town of Point Pleasant was plunged into a state of shock and grief. In the aftermath of the tragedy, a strange realization dawned upon the residents and investigators. The sightings of the Mothman, the UFOs, and the visits from the Men in Black, which had plagued the town for 13 months, abruptly and completely stopped. The creature had vanished as mysteriously as it had arrived. This led to the central, haunting question of the entire saga. What was the connection between the Mothman and the Silver Bridge collapse? The theories are as strange as the events themselves. The skeptical view suggests the Mothman was simply a misidentified large bird, like a sandhill crane or a great horned owl, its red eyes an effect of light reflecting from its retinas. The wave of sightings that followed was then a classic case of mass hysteria fueled by media attention, where every shadow and every strange bird became the monster. The bridge collapse, in this view, was a tragic, unrelated coincidence. But this explanation fails to satisfy those who experienced the events. It doesn't account for the creature's immense size, its ability to keep pace with a speeding car, or the accompanying paranormal phenomena like the MIBs. This leads to the theory embraced by John Keel and many of the town's residents. The Mothman was a harbinger of doom. It was a supernatural entity drawn to the psychic energy of the impending disaster. It was not a malevolent creature trying to cause harm, but a tormented messenger, a kind of modern-day banshee, #meta, whose very presence was a warning of the tragedy to come. Its terrifying appearance was a reflection of the terror it foresaw. When the disaster occurred, its purpose was fulfilled, and it vanished. A darker version of this theory suggests the Mothman was not a passive observer, but was somehow the cause.
its strange energies perhaps putting a final, fatal stress on the already failing bridge. Today, the official cause of the Silver Bridge collapse is known to be a structural failure, but the mystery of the Mothman endures. In Point Pleasant, a striking metallic statue of the creature now stands, its polished red eyes gazing out over the town. It serves as a tourist attraction, but also as a monument to a time of inexplicable fear and profound tragedy. The story of the Mothman is a perfect storm of folklore, cryptozoology, and real-world disaster. It reminds us that there are moments in time and places on the map where the fabric of our understood reality can wear thin, and something strange can bleed through, leaving behind not answers, but a chilling and unforgettable prophecy.